What's up, guys? It's your boy Impulse, back at it again with another video. For today's video, we will be focusing on two things. The first thing being Alex's response to rights and properties. He mentions that in the video that we're currently about to watch. And we're going to be also discussing what I think is a related issue. Why vegans are okay with driving and as a byproduct, bugs dying as a byproduct of that, right? Another related question is, why don't vegans simply take more public transportations to avoid more rights violations or suffering? Those are basically the questions that we're going to be discussing. First, we're going to go over his video. And let's get into it.
To condemn vegan bodybuilders. I have also heard people make the argument that when it comes to crop deaths, we're essentially protecting our property. That is, we have our crops, we need them to survive, to eat, to be healthy, and when animals come onto the crop fields, we're essentially killing them in defense of our property. A bit like if someone breaks into my house, I can justifiably attack them or kill them because I need to do so to protect my property. I have heard this argument being made. The big problem with this that I see immediately is the question, like, who's breaking onto the land here? Here we have this vision that we've got this farm and rodents are coming onto the farm and we have to kill them to protect our property. But did we not invade their space by laying down the crop fields in the first place? In other words, I don't think you can say, well, I have the right to kill animals in the production of my property, when we're the ones who invaded their space. Don't they have the right to protect their land against us? Why should we get to make that imposition? So I don't think that argument works either. But again, look, I know that people are going to respond to this and react to this.
Okay, I think that's pretty much what he's trying to get at. So he mentions, kind of like, if we can summarize the question, is like, who does the land really belong to? I've discussed this on other places, but I think that so one thing one can consider as a condition for the right to property is a high degree of peace in the area, right? So, like, for example, you don't just have rodents, right? You have things like snakes attacking other animals. You have bugs attacking other animals. You have destruction or invasion from some animals to other animals, right? Whether it be worms or ants on worms, spiders on insects, or anything like that. There's high degree of things that I would consider to be things that are non-peaceful. Something that I would consider similar to this is, like, suppose I have a neighbor and he's consistently going into other people's houses and murdering other neighbors. Do we have the right to remove him from his property? Let's say at the end of the day, he goes back. Let's say he lives in a tractor trailer or something like that, or like he lives in a, I don't know, some place that it's movable. Let's say, and the only two things that we can do here, right? We can either kill him or move him. Presumably, it'd be better to move him, but if we actually have to kill him, then all things considered, it's probably better to kill him. Why? Because he is not able to maintain a high degree of peace in the area. He's a murderous individual. Same thing can be applied for insects. Since the insect is not able to maintain a high degree of peace in the area, then we have a pretty good reason to either eliminate him from the area, remove property from his area that he's using to cause the violence, and maybe this is a way to mitigate that. That is one consideration. Again, I'll just restate it. As a component of the right to property, just consider a high degree of peace. If someone's not able to maintain a high degree of peace, then one may have the right to remove that property away from them. This can be also seen with things like kids, right? Maybe like child protective services, when they're not able to maintain a high degree of, like, peace, whether it be, like, it could be like, it doesn't even have to be violent. It could just be like, even though the parents have the right to the kids, not in the sense of property, but I'm saying they have the right over the kid, they can be taken if the parents are not able to maintain a high degree of peace, whether it be because they're highly drug addictive or something like that, because they're not able to maintain the needs of the kids or something like that. So the idea is, like, the high degree of peace might be a relevant feature if people or even animals are going around and killing other animals or people. That's a consideration. Another one is, like, this one's more a little trivial, but this one's more like clear boundaries. It's just not as clear. There's no clear boundaries to the rights of land. For example, let's say I'm in a, I don't know how to do this. Okay, let's say my hand. Let's say you're looking at your hand, right? You have the palm and your fingers. Let's say the palm and the right in between your fingers, so like this, right in between your finger. Yeah, let's just use that. That is a sidewalk. Let's say that's a sidewalk, right? Actually, no, I'm not gonna use that example, but I'm gonna use a similar one. Let's say I'm walking alongside a road. I'm walking alongside a road. The road doesn't have any sidewalks. I don't. There's no like public place for me to walk along the side safely. So I have to just walk along the grass, right? Walk along the grassy area. But far in the distance, there's a house, and the house says something along the lines that, no trespassing, right? Then the owner of the house comes out and says, "Hey, get out of my grass. The grass is my area, and the only thing I have is a road that I can where cars are driving by, or I have kind of have like the shoulders of the road where I'm just driving along the side of the grass area." Would we say reasonably that that this person, there's clear boundaries what makes this guy the right of property over there, that's his domain, and public area, that's the domain, when there's no clear place of me to safely walk along the side? Presumably no. Now consider instead where we do build a sidewalk, and now it's clear, okay, this is the area that we would consider part of the public where you can walk, and everything else on this side that's private. There's a clear line, and it just seems for things like crop fields, or whether it be like in the skies, right, something like that. It doesn't seem like there's a clear line between what is and isn't part of someone's property. But for things like human interaction, there seems to be clear ones. Let's say I was gonna use a good one, because like a good one that may be considered a clear boundary for the case of the animal is something like where an animal is like living in a tree, right? That's very clear. Okay, it seems like the tree belongs to the animal, or like it could be also the squares and the squirrels in the animal. Oh, the squirrels in the trees. Jesus, oh my God, I can't speak. So that's another condition that one can add, or if you don't want to add that one because it's maybe a little too complicated, you'd have to add that one. But that is another consideration. The last consideration for this one is a condition to rights of property is being able to maintain one's property without spillover effects. So let's say, for example, you live in a house and your house is always spilling over to public domains or something like that, spilling over to other domains. It seems like if this keeps occurring, you might have the right to remove this guy because he's not maintaining a high degree of I guess safety in the area, because one's about peace, the first one, but the other one's about spillover effects. So let's say, for example, because I'm trying to make sure we all get clear on the right stuff. Let's say, for example, instead of having we have the right to I have the right to property, but let's say instead someone is blind and walks in my garage. Me as a rights owner, I have the right to, I don't want to say push, even though it could lead there depending on how the person is behaving, or but let's say I am able to, hey, you're a blind person walks into my garage. Will we say that this person violated the right to property, my right to property? Maybe yes, maybe no, but either way, reasonably enough, if I ask this person to leave, they should leave, right? Why? Because me as a rights bearer to the property, I have a right to maintain the property in whatever way I see fit, contained within the property. When I have someone coming into the property, I can rightfully ask them to leave, because I'm the maintainer of the property, something like that. Now, okay, so that's that for the right stuff. I think my favorite one so far is the high degree of peace. That seems the most like potent one. Everything, the other one seems to be good considerations. However, we're gonna go over to the why are vegans okay with bugs dying while driving. So this was actually the reason why I went over the right stuff is because it's gonna play a factor in this one. It's about transportations. So the only things that, well, not necessarily the only, depends on the government, but at the time, but for the most part, the ones who have the right to be on a road that is drivable are drivers. I'm not saying humans, because you could plot, I guess, hypothetically have a species of aliens that has also the right to drive, but drivers have the right to the road, maintaining the walking of the road, unless specified otherwise by like walkways. So, let's say that since you have that right over the road, there's actually, it's like, I know there's animals I'm gonna, or might die if me protecting my car. I know there's gonna be there's gonna be some animals dying and things like that. Like there might be a kid that runs onto the road and gets hit by a car by accident. But in a sense, the right to drive on the road, it belongs to the drivers. It does not belong to the pedestrians who are just running out to the road. I'm not saying if you see a pedestrian, you could just full on go on ahead. But why are vegans okay with that? Well, one consideration is that the road belongs primarily to the drivers. Another consideration that may be an additional factor for this one might be something like the ease of avoidance, right? The ease of avoidance is very relevant. And what the likelihood of that causing some type of like harm to you or the people around you. Because if you see a bug, even though they're pretty hard to see while you're driving, but if you see a bug, you're not gonna go out of your way try to dodge the bug, because like what you could do is weigh out the cost benefit analysis, where okay, if I could get in an accident by literally just swerving really hard and losing my life, or I could take the life of a bug, which is like the worth of it might be lesser than the human, right? You could play with factors. Other considerations that might play in the worth of the bug over the human will be things like lifespan, will be things like degree of capability of reflective thinking, degree of suffering, degree of like or capability of having complex relationships. Things like those things may play moral factors in the decision making process, why one has more moral consideration than the other. That's just an idea. That's okay. So since one's very hard to avoid, this is why we would say, for the most part, let's say most people, I think, I'm not sure, but if I see a duck, I think most people would try to avoid the duck because it's easily avoidable. It's easy to be, they can see the duck and they'll try to avoid it. Same thing, I believe, same thing for, whatchamacallit, a turtle. Even though that also may cause damage to your car and actually may cause you an accident. So that might be even a greater reason to avoid them, because it might also cause you an accident. However, those considerations aren't present for like a bug. Let's see. Oh, one more thing. It also isn't clear that it is not a good thing to kill these bugs. The reason why is because suppose some of the bugs that die are mosquitoes or other predatory bugs that prey upon other bugs. let's say you have a ratio of 60, let's say 60% of the bugs that are killed are innocent in the sense that like they're herbivorous, they don't really eat or kill any other bugs, and then you have like so 60, and then you have 40% that are more violent or prey upon other types of bugs. It isn't clear that if you are killing mainly 60% and then the 40% are violent, that it isn't clear that you're doing something wrong necessarily, even though the percentage is higher on the innocent, what we would call the innocent types. The 40% could have lived on and could have caused that 60% to die, or even a greater amount, right? Or even greater amount. Could have basically meaning could have caused greater harm to other bugs in the first place. So in a sense, if you're a utilitarian, depending how you view your ethics here, you can actually make or even as a deontologist as well, rights-based approach, you could just make a self-defense case. You're gonna have to calculate that or try to even that out as best as you can. However, that's another consideration. So now there's a question about, okay, fine, maybe it's not necessarily unethical to drive, or it's maybe really hard because of all of the considerations, but why don't vegans just simply try to take public transportation to avoid rights violations or sufferings? So so far, all things that I've said apply to this question. But let's say, for example, I'm going to start off by saying putting aside like owning a car is a good thing because in cases of emergency, it is not clear that more animals die with private use of cars than public use because of the following factors. Private drivers do not drive typically for 8 hours or more at a time. It's possible during the duration public transportation kills more due to the hours driven. Another consideration is that, not to mention, buses are also in other forms of transportation tend to be much bigger, so could cause greater deaths, and they're also driving for longer, so could actually just be causing greater amounts of deaths. Okay, with 1 and 2 in mind, with a decrease in private vehicles, it's possible we could see an increase in public vehicles. We would expect to see an increase in public vehicles, public transportations. It may be, in fact, something needed to get people around. Let's see. Yeah, so with the increase of public vehicles, I don't know why I said that, but the increase of public vehicles because now if you have a decrease in the private sector of driving, you have an increase of a public sector of driving, you're going to be more buses out and about, driving and killing animals to get where they're at. Now, given the size, given the size and the hours driven, it could just turn out be on the net even, or one worse than the other. It's possible. So, not to mention that people may still have to buy vehicles, right? Because it's considered that, because I did say about the emergency, but not to mention that people also sometimes, because you don't want to take a damper at people's private life when it comes to work. Some people work really, really early to the point where they don't have access to early transportation, or really, really late, where they get out late from work and they don't have access to that transportation either. So, in a sense, it might just the thing that we have right now might just be the best thing that we can get because of that. And that's just assuming that, like, because I do think I do agree with this notion that I do think that it seems like cars do have the right to drive on the road, and if, let's say, like a person is killed because they just run on in the middle of the street, it doesn't seem to be the fault of the driver. It doesn't seem like it was negligent. The person ran. Maybe the person, should have noticed if they maybe slowed down, things like that. However, this doesn't mean that the person is at fault if something like that happens necessarily, because you can have cases where the individual is killed by honest accident, and that could just be a case for like animals being killed in for bugs or things like that. Just a thought. All right, thanks for watching, guys. This is Impulse. I'm just watching Alex's response to the rights violation approach, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I added extra content, so the driving stuff, because I thought it might relate to the rights of drivings and things like that. But if you guys enjoyed, like and follow, and please, you guys take care.